So, Andrew, here's one that I would like to get your take on. I came across this clip of Cliffe Knechtle saying that women should be pastors and leaders in the church.
Oh, God.
I'm not 100% sure the basis of this, but I'm pretty sure that that's not the case.
I can tell you exactly what the basis is. Somebody wants to a woman who's at this church, okay? That's what the basis is. I'm just going to be totally honest. Here's the basis for all women's in churches, female leadership conferences, where men are saying that women need to lead in churches. Somebody wants to have sex with them, with some woman in that church. Every single time, with zero exception, somebody wants to hump.
Yeah, but wouldn't the best way to do that to be to walk up to them and say, "Hey, woman, be quiet"?
Well, you would think, right? You would think, but that's not very Christ-like. It's not the most Christian thing that what would Jesus do? Jesus would go up there and be passive aggressive and go against the words of his own apostles, right? And then you could do the kind of like low-key simping, which is basically what they're doing.
All right, well, let's have a listen to this.
Okay, hang on, before you play it. Okay. I just want to take a bet here that this guy literally sounds like a simp. I just got a feeling. All right.
As in Cliffe?
Yeah.
Yeah.
In the Bible context, Paul writes that women should not be pastors. Is that something that we should take in context or something that we should take literally?
Paul writes that women are not to be pastors. I don't think that's a fair translation. He does write, I do not permit a woman to have authority over a man.
Or to teach.
And yet, Paul had a partner in ministry named Priscilla.
No, that wasn't a partner. That was not a partner in ministry, lying sack of dog shit. It wasn't his partner.
Preacher Apollos.
We got more volume on this clip?
So what on earth is
That's it, man.
Okay.
he saying when he says, I don't allow a woman to have authority over a man? I would argue that he is writing to Timothy in 1 Timothy 2, and he's pointing out
I think it's 2:12.
that in Ephesus, which is the city that Timothy was pastoring in, there was a goddess, Diana of the Ephesians. So there was massive confusion about sexual roles in Ephesus. Women received a new freedom in Christ that they began to abuse. And that's why in his comments to the Corinthians in 1 Corinthians 11 and 14, he says, I don't allow a woman to teach a man. But wait a second, Paul. You got Priscilla teaching Apollo.
But wouldn't there be some cases where there would be women who are a lot more sort of spiritually advanced, I guess, if you will? Like if they've been in the church their whole life, and if there's somebody who's a brand new convert or somebody who's not even a Christian at all, for the woman to teach the man?
So there's cases, if you're a woman, you can teach your children, right? But you're supposed to defer to your husband, right? That's what you're supposed to do. What it's basically outlining is an ecclesiastical authority, saying like, look, in leadership roles in churches, women are not supposed to hold them, and that's that.
Right.
They're not
What
supposed
about
to
nuns?
hold them. What about them?
Would they ever like teach boys or men? No.
Yeah, they're not in positions of holding authority over them. That's the key.
Right.
Nuns, who holds authority over nuns?
Priests,
Mm-hmm. And who holds authority over priests?
bishops.
Right. So the idea here isn't that you couldn't ask a nun a question about the gospel. That's fine. The question is who's allowed to teach from authority?
Right. Okay.
Now, you could make this argument, and I've heard people make it, but nuns teach kids. Yes, women can teach children. That's not a problem. It says you can't have authority over who? A man. Is an 8-year-old boy a man? No. Pretty simple.
I think it gets back to the education issue. Women were not allowed to get an education, so Paul is saying, I'm not going to have an uneducated person starting to teach.
So he's saying here that that it's actually misinterpreted, and actually Paul meant that he just didn't want uneducated people. But now that we live in this sort of hyper modernized liberal world where women are educated, then women should be the teachers. Makes sense, right?
No.
Okay. You don't want women being the teachers and the leaders?
They're not supposed to have positions of authority over men from an ecclesiastical perspective. The idea here of a woman teaching a man, right, is not strictly itself forbidden. So, like, if you have Bible study, let's say, and I have some woman there who we're going over a passage, and she's like, "Did you know the history of this is blah 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 blah?" That's permitted. That's not her having in the ecclesiology. That's not her having authority over me, though. That's the key. Right? Don't permit a woman to teach men. It's talking about authority inside of the church, not
Right.
about like, oh, I can teach you how to stitch up the fucking clothes. That's not what it's saying.
Right, okay.
Now, what I've just told you, some very strong Christians who I respect highly disagree with me. So please, I'm not trying to contradict them. I'm just telling you how I handle those difficult scriptures. Paul had partners who were women in ministry.
They weren't partners.
For a Grace Community Church.
What were they? They're just helpers?
They're underlings.
Yeah.
Okay. Paul was in charge. Okay.
Yeah.
He was in charge. Not any of his underlings. They weren't in charge. I mean, they had their own charges. That's true. Right. But Paul was the guy at the top.
Right.
Staff and in pastoral positions, because I believe that if God gives a woman gifts, we're to give the women opportunity to use those gifts.
Yeah, we know the clips are low, dude. I can't do anything. We can't do anything about it. It's just the way that this clip is shot.
And we have women planning team members who handle finances, strategy of the church. But I have the utmost respect for pastors who say, Cliff, you're compromising. I don't agree with them, but I understand why they say what they say.
Okay, so let me address the comment here. No, we're fucking not. And stop trying to gaslight us, you little prick. Okay, I heard the words come out of his mouth. Yes, they should be allowed to be pastors because now they're educated and before they weren't. I literally heard the words come out of his mouth. Stop trying to bullshit me. I have ears. I can hear what this guy just said. Why do you Protestants do this all the time? Why do you try to gaslight constantly? Why do you try to make it seem like the saying that he's clearly saying you're saying he's not saying? You realize that we all just watched the clip, right? We all just watched it.
What do you think is the actual problem, like fundamentally, if there is female pastors? Because I've kind of got my own opinion on this just from going to various different churches. But from your opinion, what do you actually think that the problem is, and why this is a really important issue?
God says
women?
no. That should be enough, right?
Yeah,
but the
it
thing
should be,
is,
yeah.
but the thing is like, let's just look at the practical and pragmatic reasons behind this. Who is he saying is authorized to teach?
Men.
And the husband.
Yeah.
Right. So what's the deference here? The deference is moving to the husband. So what happens if you have a conflict of interest between a woman who's in charge and your husband?
You have to defer to the husband.
You should defer to the husband, right?
Yep.
Okay. But what about in ecclesiology if you have a priest who has a differing message from the husband? Who should you adhere to then?
The priest.
Well, so now we have a conflict, don't we? So the idea is like the major idea here is just the undermining of authority. That's it.
That is right, though. She should go with the priest, though, right? If it is priest and then the husband.
If it's on a matter of spiritualism of the church, then the husband probably will be adhering to what the priest says too. Ultimately, though, he's in charge of the family as well. There could be bad priests and things like this, and it's part of his charge as head of his family to find different church if necessary, or become members of a small council inside of those church chambers so that they can work those issues out. But the whole point and principle here is undermining of authority.
And also, I don't know if this is what Paul meant by this or why this was important, but if you ever do see women in positions of authority, or when they actually just sort of control the narrative of various different churches, they become very feminine and they become very sort of soft and all about the feeling. It's like, today I want you guys to focus on how it feels and how everything feels. And then when you go to the divine liturgies, it's more sort of serious and it's more sort of, I guess, based on like the
You mean they're not a
traditions.
bunch of arm flailing tube men who are just
Yeah,
flapping their arms around and jumping up and down and singing rock songs for Christ, that kind of thing? It has a more serious note where you're
yeah.
expected to actually dress accordingly. Like you're expected to dress like you're going to actually worship God, your creator. You're expected to have a deferential tone because it's God, your creator, who you're worshiping. Instead of showing up in ripped jeans and short skirts and this and that, you don't put women in charge of large organizations like this and have them spearheaded over men. You don't do it. That's not the way that the hierarchy is set up. Period.
Do you think that that is the thing that, like, the reason why you do get those sorts of churches? Do you think that it is largely because of female influence, or do you think it's something else? Or do you think it's like scriptural interpretation or whatever?
I think that it's very rudimentary. I think that it's because a lot of the guys who promote that want to have sex with various women and they don't want to come off and seem like they're misogynistic or things like this. I think it's just undercover simping. I
Mm,
think that it's Protestant simping. That's what I think it is. It's a form of simping.
right.
I,
All
I
right.
and I know how that sounds, right? And surely, Andrew, there's deeper motivations here. It's like, I don't think so. I don't think that the motivations are all that deep. It's very clear what's going on. It's very clear that you don't put women in charge of an ecclesiastical order. That's not what it's supposed to be. Period. The
Mm.
fact that these people cope so hard to try to find some justification makes me think that they have ulterior motives. And those ulterior motives, I would say, probably have a lot to do with their penis and its current status in the world.
Or lack thereof.